No, I can't hear you. I'm not sure why. Let's see.
Dr. Choi?
Did you unmute yourself?
Can you hear us now?
Oh, I see a face. Oh, I can't hear you for some reason.
Okay.
Hey, do you know how to do sign language? Okay, 2 and 5. Yeah, sorry, you're gonna have to type.
Okay.
This is strange. One way. While he's typing, when would I do lingual plate to cover the lingual side of the tooth? And again, if you are trying to have a lingual plate because you don't have enough depth in the floor of the mouth, lingual plate by definition has to cover the lingual area of the teeth. A benefit in addition to that, if you choose lingual plate, if the patient has somewhat of a compromised teeth periodontally, the lingual plate can act as a way to splint those teeth and stabilize these teeth to a certain point, to a certain extent. So that's another indication why you might do lingual plate that covers the lingual area of the anterior teeth. And as I mentioned, it's a bit easier to add teeth to the lingual plate than lingual bar. So if we, so the question is from Ari, does this prevent further spacing of teeth? That's yes and no. I think that, again, if it's not designed properly or anatomically the teeth were already quite severely tilted, any kind of contact force coming through the prosthesis, it can actually worsen the spacing of the teeth. So this again goes back to really diagnosing the situation. Is this periodontally compromised? Then you got to really consider, okay, maybe we have a cingulum rest that's really kind of vertically positioned on those teeth, that when you put the lingual plate, it sits on the cingulum rest on the anterior teeth, and it directs the force relatively straight or parallel to the long axis of the tooth. If you do that, potentially the teeth are not going to flare or splay anteriorly. But again, if there's a periodontal issue to start, it's not easy to control all of that purely from the prosthetic point of view. In that case, would you consider ortho first? No, again, foundation to me starts from periodontium. So if there's a periodontal disease, you got to address that first. What happens when you move teeth with an active periodontal disease going on? Well, you're going to worsen that potentially. So if the teeth are stable, periodontally there's no active disease, if they're spacing, then yes, I would consider moving teeth to see if we can close all these spaces. One of the ideas, one of the design principles, if there's no periodontal problems, definitely consider ortho. And that actually goes with a design ideal, which is if we can close as much space as possible, it will be better. Simpler RPD design, better for the patient because there's not as much of a prosthetic hardware that becomes a food trap. So I don't know what happened with Cash. So tissue undercut, Rottweiler buccal tilt of tooth, Rottweiler circumferential. Are there other exceptions that we should know for Monday's exam? Oh, Cash, I hope you're not writing a book. I'm kidding. Josh, just to clarify, when there is unfavorable soft tissue undercut, again, think suprabulge bulge instead of infrabulge, where the clasp is coming from occlusal direction, not gingival direction. Once you have that, Then you have various options. You got Rottweiler, cast circumferential clasp. Based on the Kennedy class, you have to think, okay, what do I want to do? Where's the fulcrum? Again, remember that sequence that I shared with you. I don't think about retentive element until I have the rest first, because that's the one that's going to give me the fulcrum in the beginning. Okay, so once you figure out the rest, you know where the fulcrum is, then decide, okay, should I do, because I'm doing super bulge, do I want to really do circumferential cast clasp, or do I want something flexible? That will help you decide Rottweiler versus C-speed. Buccal tilt of the tooth, again, same thing. What Kennedy classification do you have? What anatomical situation do you have? Has the anatomical issue been addressed by, removing that survey line lower away from the tooth, making the tilt less? What Kennedy classification is this? Again, I'm within that first column of ideas where I'm thinking about the big stuff first. Anatomy, Kennedy classification. Once I have thought about that, I think about the rest first, because that's where the fulcrum is going to be. Once that's in my head, then I decide, okay, I can do super bulge. In terms of super bulge, I'm going to do either Rottweiler circumferential. I want more flexibility. I'm going to go with Rottweiler. If the Kennedy class 3 situation is tooth bone, I can do C-speed. Again, that's kind of... Yeah, so let me backtrack. I'm going to answer Cash's question. When we're designing an RPD, we have certain objectives: preservation, support, stability, aesthetics, retention. Then we have the components which are class connector, rest, proximal plate to consider to make sure we fulfill our objectives. But what about occlusion and chewing? Specifically, class 3, when we have class 2 lever action happening, not the most stable, but we need to avoid class 1 lever. Now, if you have patient in need of mandibular RPD class 3, how does all things work together when chewing and occlusion? I have to really think hard. Has Dr. Fromm gone over occlusion in the course? No, not at all. For the exam, my wife is... for the exam, then I'm going to look at all the lectures she presented so far, actually, after this. For the exam, you don't have to study that part. That's what I will say for now. But I'll verify with you, with your whole class, if that's what you need to know. Now, in terms of occlusion and chewing, that's a very a large topic. We can talk about this, and it will involve quite a bit, Cash, and anyone else who's interested. So potentially you put it aside and find another time, but if you have to think about occlusion and how it has to be set up with RPD around teeth, first, we have to ensure the design is proper, again, based on everything we've talked about. 2, in terms of occlusion, when I close and occlude my teeth together, my teeth obviously contact each other. Now, if I have some edentulous areas, and basically those areas are replaced with denture teeth, the denture teeth have to work with my existing natural teeth. In other words, they have to conform, denture teeth, the RPD have to conform to my existing natural occlusion. If you think about that, everything else, what you have to do occlusion-wise, is pretty simple. And that's all I'll say for now, because this exam really isn't about occlusion, it's really about RPD design concepts and principles. And if you focus on how one you should design based on the Kennedy classifications, anatomical limitations, and some of the nuances you have within each Kennedy classifications, you'll be fine. So let's go back a bit because Jazz asked, I'm sorry, Jasmine, I don't know if your nickname is Jazz actually. Is the example that you showed from a PowerPoint, the lingual plate class 1 lever? Yeah, because the rest wasn't the distal with a circumferential clasp coming from it, the retentive element on the mesial buccal side. Yeah, that's absolutely